Well, the thing is, you always get denied when you apply for a credit card. So in today's conversation, I really want to spill the beans here because I'll be talking to you about credit card application questions and answers you must memorize to always get approved. The key word here is memorize. You want to memorize the answers I'm going to give you so that next time you apply for a credit card, your chances of approval will skyrocket. Don't go anywhere. You're going to love today's conversation. I guarantee it. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sort of Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous, if you were to ask me. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka, and let's roll. In today's conversation, I want to share with you credit card application questions and answers you must memorize to always get approved. The first question is, what is your primary source of income? Basically, here, the credit card issuer wants to have they want to have a clear idea of how much money you're making. And they want to have a clear idea where you derive your revenue from, okay? And when we talk about source of income, there are a few sources of income that are acceptable on a credit card application. So if you have a 9-to-5 job, this is the classic source of income. You can also put part-time job, seasonal job, gig work. The whole idea is that you got to be able to prove your income through a W-2, a 1099, or pay stub, okay? It's really important. Now, the question is, if you have no income proof, you must be able to prove income through a tax return. So when you are asked what is your primary source of income, just tell the truth. You just put on the form where you derived your revenue from, and it has to. And this could be one source, or it could be two sources or more. Second question: do you have other sources of income? So basically, we are doing a distinction here between your primary source of income, what really puts food on the table, and then your ancillary sources of income. So for example, you have ordinary income. So this is your 9-to-5 job, what I just said earlier, but you also might have capital gains from time to time. Let's say you have investments and you are receiving dividends, you are receiving or you sold investments. Depending on how long you have held those investments, we talk about capital gains, short-term capital gains or long-term capital gains if the holding period exceeds 1 year. So this could be another source of income. And you want to really specify that on the credit card application form. Very important. And in some cases, you might have tax-exempt income. So let's say you have you receive income from certain bonds issued by governmental entities. So those are treated as tax-exempt income, okay? So interest paid on federal bonds and treasury securities is exempt from state and local taxation. So pay attention to that. And also business, if you derive revenue from a business, this could also be a secondary source of income. So please mention that also on your credit card application form. Question number 3, who is your current employer? So the credit card issuer is doing a lot of things here. They want to make sure first that you have a job. And if you have a job, who is your employer? So here you want to talk about your employer. Okay, just put the company you work for, how long you have been working for them, very important. But if you are also a self-employed individual, mention that. You are your own boss. You want the credit card issuer wants to have a clear idea about your business, your self-employment, your sole proprietorship, okay, the office address, the nature of the business, the company position, monthly compensation, and even telephone number. This is basically if you are working for someone else. But even if you're working for yourself, they still want to have a clear idea about your business. You want to have a clear idea of things like your revenue, your phone number, your address, all that kind of stuff, okay? And it's important to understand that if they ask you who is your current employer, they not only want to know who the company is, but also they want to know the date of employment. When did you start? So mention that, okay? If you started recently, or because the credit card issuer just want to cover their ass. They're looking for stability here. They're looking for an applicant who is stable in terms of their financial history. Okay, and if you are a self-employed individual, mention that, but don't believe that this is going to disqualify you. No, not at all. You have to prove that you are able to generate revenue. It's all about cash flow. It's all about having enough cash flow to repay whatever balance you carry on the credit card. Okay, so if you're a self-employed individual, let's say you are an independent contractor, you are, let's say, an Uber driver or a you're a dasher, for instance. You have to be you should be able to show a receipt. Your 1099s payments. Okay, and if you actually use the software, you're able to run monthly reports that show the credit card issuer that you are generating enough revenue. Again, enough revenue to cover whatever balance you put on the card. So when you are asked who is your current employer, that question has two answers, actually two subparts. The first part is you have to say who your employer is. You have to mention the dates of employment, and also you have to mention how much you're making. And they're asking you, which is this is a related question, how long have you been in your current job? Now, when we talk about this question is a little tricky because a lot of people believe that when you are asked this question, they just want to know history. They just want to know, oh, I started 5 years ago, or I started from 2018 to till now. Yeah, but that's just a small amount, a small part of the question. This question is tricky in the sense that the credit card issuer just wants to know, I mean, they really want to know not only the history of your employment with your current employer, but also your seniority. In other words, are you an entry level or are you a mid-level manager? So basically, when you started, let's say you started 10 years ago, and the credit card issuer is looking at your application and looking at your information and thinking, this person started their job 10 years ago, but they are still at the same level that they were 10 years ago. So the credit card issuer really wants to see that you are performing at your job. Now, they will never say it on a credit card application form because there are legal ramifications, but when they underwrite, when they review your application, those are things that those are things that the underwriter pays attention to. Okay, what is your level? What is the level in your position? What is your salary earned? Do you have bonuses? Okay, obviously we're talking about money. So when the question is, when the question pops up, how long have you been in your current job? They're looking at also your salary trends. Okay, have you been promoted? Have you been compensated properly? Pay attention to that. And have you received a recent promotion? Those are questions that are important. Question number 5. What is your home address? Now, this is a simple question. So they are asking you about your private information, right? So how long have you been staying in that address? Is it rented, owned, or mortgaged? If renting, what is your monthly rent? Okay. The thing about your home address is that, and when we talk about renting or having a mortgage to property, is because this has implications when it comes to DTI. There is something called DTI, debt to income ratio. So whether you are renting or paying a mortgage, the credit card issuer wants to have a clear idea of the portion of your income that you allocate to debt servicing. And this is what is called the DTI. It's very important. Normally, you want to keep your DTI below 30%, 35%, 30%. Okay. And because the higher the DTI, the riskier your credit card application becomes. Question number 6. What are your existing loans? This is another tricky one here, folks, because when they are when they're asking you your existing loans, they are interested in the amount of the loan, the number of loans that you have, and the maturity date. It's important. So, they want to know not only how much you owe, but also how many loans you have. Because if you have let's say you have a great number of loans that are open currently, think about it from the perspective of a lender. They're thinking about risk management. They're thinking about covering their ass. So if they're thinking about just making sure that you are able to repay whatever limits they allocate to your credit card, so then they are thinking about, hey, we want to make sure that this person is able to repay us. Okay. And they are looking at your maturity also, the maturity of the loans. Big decision time. Big decision time. Talk to me right now. Do you currently have loans? How many loans do you have? And what is the maturity of those loans? In other words, how soon do you have to pay them off? Now, this is important. I'm not saying if you have a lot of loans, you might be disqualified from a credit card application form, but your chances of being approved are slimmer. Let's just say that way. I'm not going to sugarcoat things for you. No. So if you have a lot of loans, because a lot of loans means what? Your credit score will go down because of your payment history, unless you have stellar credit history. But again, you want to bring the loan payments down. You want to reduce the amount of outstanding loan balances. Okay. And so the lender, when they are asking you what are your existing loans, they are also paying attention to the diversity of loans. So we're talking about, do you have installment loans, secure loans, unsecured loans? Those are important because those carry different ramifications, different consequences, not only from a balance sheet perspective, but also from a risk perspective. I'll give you an example. If you have secure loans, that means that the credit card issuer knows that your assets are already taken elsewhere. Because remember, when we are talking about a personal credit card, you always have the idea of a personal guarantee. In other words, you are liable for whatever you charge on the card. This is really important, okay? And also, when we talk about your existing loans, you want to pay attention to your DTI. I've mentioned DTI earlier. Question number 7. How many credit cards do you currently have? This is a question that we have seen on some credit card applications, especially on the application forms for credit cards when you go to a credit union, or also those community banks, those regional banks. We've seen this a lot. And you need to understand that when we talk about credit cards, credit cards, we are talking about what? Your current card count with the issuer. Let's say you are applying for a credit card with Chase. Chase want to know how many credit cards you have currently with them, or Wells Fargo, or Citibank for that matter. Okay, so your card counts in general. How many cards do you have in general? And because those have consequences, and the number has consequences. It has the first consequence is your credit utilization, because your CUR plays an important role. Actually, it actually accounts for 30% of your credit score. So the higher your CUR, your credit utilization ratio, the lower your credit score. So you want to, the goal here is what? To lower your CUR. Okay. And you also have to think about rules with some issuers. So I've spoken to you earlier about Chase. So Chase has their 524 rule. So it's something you need to really pay attention to. Okay. So knowing that you already own a credit card means you have already undergone, let's say, the strict verification process done by other banks. Okay. On the other hand, if you don't own a credit card yet, you need to submit more documents or additional proofs that you are capable of paying your purchases with a card. The banks just wants to have an assurance from you that you can repay them. Okay. And it's important to understand that if you don't have an existing credit card from other banks, the issuer would like to know if you have an account with them. This is why we always say here on this show that you want to establish a relationship with the lender. Let's say if you want to get a credit card from a bank or a credit union with which you already have a relationship, because they have a clear idea of your transactional volume, of your transactional history. They see it. Especially if you have direct deposit with them, this is really good. Okay. So if you have direct deposit with an institution, it's a lot easier to apply for a credit card because they see your inflow, your cash inflows and cash outflows. They see your revenue, how much money you're making. This is really important. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another section of the Awesome Sort of Kiwi Show. We are still having a conversation about credit card application questions and answers you must memorize if you want to be approved all the time. And question number 8, are you co-applying? So this is important because they just want to know if the liability, the potential liability, will be shared by another person. Remember, for a credit card issuer, it's all about, again, mitigating risk, making sure that the balance is repaid, whatever balance you charge on you have on the card is repaid. So they want to know if they should also seek information about the co-applicants, because if you are co-applying for a credit card, they will be asking the same information that they are asking you. They'll be asking the co-applicant social security number. They want to know their net worth, their income, their expenses, their DTI, okay, their address. So this is good. And one thing you need to understand is that being married, separated, or let's say you have a complicated status, those are kind of important when you undergo credit investigation. Okay, in some cases, they might even ask about your kid's age and your husband's or wife's current employment. Okay, and some banks will even dig more information about your spouse's employer, your employer's address and phone number. So it's all about just casting a wider net, a wider analytical net in terms of understanding who you really are, or what your application entails for the credit card issuer. Question number 9, are you transferring balances? And here, this question is pretty simple. It's really straightforward. There's not a lot of things you can, it's either yes or no. And so when we talk about you transferring balances, you have to put yes or no, but also you have to put how much you want to transfer, okay? Here, it's not really complicated. The only thing you want to pay attention to is the balance transfer fee. Very important. You want to pay attention to 2 things, not just one thing. 2 things, the balance transfer fee and the APR of the balance transfers, in addition to the transfer period, the transfer window. If it's 0% APR, fantastic. But is it 0% for transfers and purchases, or just transfers? Okay. Generally, what we tell people to do on this show is to use a card for transfers only. So when you do balance transfers, don't try to mix up the balance transfers with purchases, because there are different calculations and you don't want to get into anything complicated. You want to use a card to transfer balances and you pay it off. And then once the transfer balance is paid off, you can use the card again for purchases. Okay, so pay attention to the amount you are transferring, the balance transfer fee, but also the transfer window. Very important. Question number 10. Do you own a car? Now you might be thinking, why am I being asked if I own a car on a credit card application? Phew, you'd be surprised. This is an important question, because especially for credit unions and community banks and regional banks, this is really important. And one thing I want to say here is that the reason why a credit card issuer might ask you if you own a car is they want to know, again, going back to what I said earlier about your DTI, your debt to income ratio. That's the same reason why they've asked you if you own a home or you rent. Okay, it's really they just want to have a clear idea of your monthly payments. If you own a car, is the car paid off, or you are still making car payments? Because every month you're going to have to make car payments, and the credit card issuer wants to make sure they have enough money left to repay the balance you have charged, the balance you have on the card, whatever amount you have charged to their card. Okay, and so one thing you have to be clear about is to tell the truth, because this information can be independently verified in terms of if the credit card issuer does a title search, they can see if you have a car. And again, it's not about just lying on a credit card application. You never want to do that. Always tell the truth on any application, for that matter. Loan application, credit card application, mortgage application, you name it. All right. And you always want to tell the truth. And one thing you want to say in terms of if they ask you if you own the car, yes, you say yes or no. If yes, you want to, if the card is fully paid off, then you say it, yes, and you put in parentheses, fully paid off. If no, then you have to mention in parentheses how much you are paying every month, but you also want to put into parentheses the maturity of the car loan. So you're telling the lender, hey, listen, I still have to pay until 2020, 2030 or 2040 or 2015 or 2025 or 20, whatever. You just need to be specific about that, okay? So overall, credit card issuers ask these questions because they ask those 10 questions because they want to have a clear idea of who they are dealing with, of who they have to approve or reject for that matter. Thank you so much for your attention, folks. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I was talking to you about credit card application questions and answers you must memorize to get approved quickly. Number one, what is your primary source of income? Number two, do you have other sources of income? Number three, who is your current employer? Number four, how long have you been employed in your current job? Number five, what is your home address? Number six, what are your existing loans? Number seven, how many credit cards do you currently have? Number eight, are you co-applying? Number nine, are you transferring balances? Number 10, do you own a car? Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.